Hey, what's up guys, I'm back here with another video. I'm going to be doing the ultimate guide for Kayn. I'm going to be going over both forms, red and blue Kayn. I'm going to be going over the playstyle, the runes, and the builds. If you guys like the video, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think down below. Alright, for the first form that I'm going to be going over, the red Bruiser. The reason I think red Bruiser is a lot better in the lower elos is because I think in the lower elos, a lot of the time, you're going to need to be able to 1v5. And if you go Assassin Red, you're going to be bursted super easily if they have a lot of CC. And if the game drags on for too long, you'll eventually get outscaled. So I know that Bruiser gets outscaled, but you're a lot tankier and you can pretty much face tank a lot more in the mid to late game. You can like pretty much 1v5 a lot more if you build a proper lead in the early game. So for the rune page that I like to run for Bruiser Red Kayn, I like to go Conquer into Triumph, into the CDR rune, into Last Stand, and then I like to go for the Inspiration secondary, the Boots and Cosmic Insight, and then double adaptive into either Tenacity or Scaling Health, depending on if they have a lot of heavy CC or not. Alright, and then for the build that I like to run for Bruiser Red Kayn, I like to run the Eclipse into Cleaver or Shojin, depending on if they have a lot of armor stacking champions, like if they have a Rhaast or a Nasus or like a Graves. I like to go for the Cleaver second. If they don't have any real armor stacking champions, I can go for the Shojin into Death Dance, into Styrax, and then you can finish that off with either a Spirit Visage or GA, depending on if they have any magic damage. If they have magic damage, you can switch the Styrax for Maw, and then we finish that off with your choice of boots depending on the team comp. And then for the playstyle that I'm currently going for Bruiser Red Kayn, I like to be a little bit more farm heavy with Bruiser Red Kayn. I like to just full clear. I like to do the typical Raptors into Krugs red, Wolves, Gromp blue, and then Scuttle into a gank or into Raptors again, into Krugs into reset. This gives me a huge back. It gives me a perfect buy, 1,000 gold buy. It also, if I don't get a gank, I can still purchase my pickaxe, and then I can look for a super aggressive play off the recall. A lot of times with this build, with this playstyle, Bruiser Red Kayn, I don't typically like to look for those super early ganks unless they're 100% free. I don't really like to deviate from my full clear unless the gank is, like I said, 100% free. Doing 3 camp ganks with this type of playstyle is not worth, because if you fail the gank, you're gonna lose a lot of tempo and you're not gonna get to those 3 item spikes. I think Bruiser Red Kayn kind of spikes really hard at like the 3rd item, where you get the Death Dance, you get those stats plus all that damage that you have. You can pretty much like face tank a lot of team comps, especially if they have a lot of melee champions. And the reason that I prefer this over the Assassin Red Kayn in the lower elos is because, like I mentioned at the start, a lot of the times you're gonna have these champions that you can't burst with Assassin Red Kayn. Let's say like they have like a Darius who gets fed, and you can't control that, because a lot of time in lower elos you won't be able to control that. Say the Darius gets fed, your Assassin Red Kayn, he'll be able to have too much armor for you to really burst. Unless you're super far ahead, you're gonna have to put the game in your team's hands. Like if they have a Leona, Darius, and like a Rhaast, you're not gonna want to go Assassin Red Kayn into that. You're gonna need to go Bruiser Red Kayn. So in that situation, you can pretty much kill them, do a lot of damage, and still be tanky and pew for your team. That's why I prefer Bruiser in the lower elos. And by lower elos, I mean like mid emerald to anything under that. And then for the playstyle, like I said, it's more farm heavy, but after you get your form and you get your like first item, you can look for more aggressive plays with the Conqueror. With the Conqueror, you have a lot of more sustain, so you can take a lot of skirmishes with a lot of melee champs and again farm your form. Kind of different from like the Dark Harvest playstyle. You can't really skirmish as much because you don't have the sustain. Alright, but now moving on from the Bruiser Red Kayn, I'm gonna be going over Assassin Red Kayn. This form and playstyle is super fun, and I think it's the most consistent in like the higher elos, Diamond Plus, because in Diamond Plus you can rely more on your team. You have a lot more engaged tools, a lot more players who are more aware of what they need to do, and then you can pretty much execute this playstyle a lot better. So for the rune page for Assassin Red Kayn, I like to go Dark Harvest into Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection into Ultimate Hunt. And then secondary rune page is pretty much the same standard thing. You go Boots, Cosmic Insight, and then double adaptive into Tenacity or Scaling Health, depending on the enemy team count. Alright, so moving on from the rune page, let's go over the build. This build is a build that I've been like preaching for a long time. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the first Kayn mains to pretty much talk about this item. I think this item was so broken, I even made a guide like 4 months ago before anyone was even going this build, saying that this item was really good, especially in the lower elos. And the item is Hubris. I think Hubris is so broken, especially in lower elos, because you can stack it like to an insane amount. I've even stacked it to like 90 before. It's like insane infinite stacking. So as long as you're getting kills, you get a lot of extra AD, and then you get CDR as well for your first item. It's just a really solid item overall. I like to go Hubris into Axiomark, or Opportunity into Grudge. Sometimes I like to go for the Hubris into Edge and Knight into Grudge if they have a lot of CC. If not, I go for the Opportunity second into Grudge into, sometimes I go Yomu's if I need the movement speed. Sometimes I go Axiomark if I don't need the movement speed into Edge and Knight, and then my choice of boots. The reason that I like to go this full damage build is because a lot of the times Red Kayn is a better scaling champion than Blue Kayn, and I know it may sound crazy, but Red Kayn is just a better scaling Blue Kayn. He just has no mobility, so it makes it hard to play this playstyle. But a lot of the time in the lower elos, a lot of the players don't really know how to kite, so this makes it even more broken to go Red Kayn most of the games in lower elo because they just don't know how to kite. Your W knockup is an insane engage tool and insane disengage tool as well, and then you do so much damage, so much healing, and a lot of the time they don't even build any healing reduction in the lower elos. That's why Red Kayn is so sleeper in lower elos. But yeah, the reason you would go this rune page and build is into kind of melee champions that are squishy. So melee champions that are squishy are like a Pyke, like a Jax. I know he's not really squishy, but he doesn't really build that much health. He builds more so bruiser items. He does build health like in the mid to late, but a lot of times you can just burst him a lot easier than you would be able to burst like a tank. So like into like a Jax, like a Graves jungle, like a Pyke, like a Nyla ADC, just like a Silas mid, just like any type of melee champ that doesn't really build a lot of like armor and like just any defensive stats, to be honest. And this build works super efficiently because you just pretty much one-shot anyone. You pretty much one-shot with just Q, W, O. It's instant one-shot. And I'm gonna be showcasing that here on the video. I'm just gonna be showcasing like the amount of damage this build does is just way too insane, and it scales way too hard, especially when you get to like 3 atoms and 20 Dark Harvest stacks. That's why with this playstyle, I usually tend to go for more aggressive type of ganks. I usually look to do like 3 camp ganks. So I do the Raptors into Krugs red, and if I have an engaged support, I usually tend to force a gank bot lane or a gank top lane, depending on if my top lane has any decent setup. If not, I do end up going for that full clear. I do end up looking for those Raptors into Krugs before I recall again, just so I can get that Dirk. If you do this clear exactly, you'll be able to get Dirk without even getting a single kill. So you can start by doing Raptors into Krugs, red, wolves, Gromp, blue, Scuttle, and if there's no gank potential, you just run straight back to your Raptors that will be spawning shortly, and then you do your Raptors into your Krugs, and that gives you a completed Dirk on back. That way you snowball super hard with this path if you don't get punished early. And a lot of times in the lower elos you won't get punished, like the enemy jungle won't really take your Raptors, so it's actually really good to start Raptors in lower elos. In the higher elos I tend to start my buff sometimes if the matchup is rough, but it just depends on the matchup. Maybe I'll be doing a video on matchups just to explain that a little bit better. Alright, so last thing before I move on to Blue Kayn, so I want to go over when you need to go Bruiser Red and when you need to go Assassin Red again. So Assassin Red is into squishier comps that are melee, and then Bruiser Red is into more tankier comps that are melee. So like I said, Leona and just pretty much any tank in general. Alright, so now let's move on to the Blue Kayn part of the video. And if you guys want, I'm going to be leaving timestamps in the video so you guys can skip to like the Red Kayn or the Blue Kayn part as well. Alright, now going over the Blue Kayn. Blue Kayn doesn't have as much variety as Red Kayn does at the moment, sadly. He's just not really in a great spot at the moment. He's kind of mediocre at best. He doesn't really scale after they removed the profane Q interaction, which is really sad that they even ended up removing that. I feel like that was really dumb mistake by Riot, but that's something for another video. Alright, so for the rune page for Blue Kayn, at the moment I'm running just the standard Dark Harvest into Sudden Impact, into Eyeball Collection, into Treasure Hunter. I do like going Treasure Hunter on Blue Kayn because I think you need to snowball a lot harder in the early game on blue, since he doesn't really scale, so the extra gold is a lot more important on blue. And then for secondaries, I like to go for Boots into Cosmic Insight, and then Double Adaptive into either Tenacity or Scaling Health, depending on the team comp. The reason that I like to go Treasure Hunter on blue, like I said, is just you really do need to snowball a lot harder, and I just can't emphasize enough on how hard you need to snowball on blue to make him efficient and just better than red in certain situations. The only times I would recommend going Blue Kayn is if they have just pretty much 5 squishy champions that can kite you super hard, because at that point then Blue Kayn will be very efficient. And then for the build for Blue Kayn that I'm running at the moment, I am going for the Hubris into either Opportunity or Axiomark, depending on the team comp. And then after that I like to go for Grudge, and if they don't really have any armor champions, I'll go for Edge and Knight instead of Grudge, and then I will go for a Grudge after, and then you can finish that off with your boots, your choice of boots, and then a GA or maybe some type of defensive item if they have a lot of burst. This build is the most common build that people are running at the moment and the most optimal. Some people still run the Yomu's into Axiomark build, but I honestly think that build is just completely dead. I don't think that build is even good at all. It just doesn't do enough damage and doesn't scale at all. And it's really hard to snowball hard with that build, and especially in the lower elos. You can maybe make that build work like in Grandmaster Plus, but in the lower elos, Hubris is just 100 times better. Honestly, I think Hubris was even better back when the Q profane interaction was a thing. I think Hubris Rush was always just better than the Youmuu's Rush. I think the Youmuu's Rush was not as efficient. I even made a video 4 months ago speaking on why Hubris was better in the lower elos for Blue Kayn, and now everybody's building the item, which is insane. I think the item is just way too efficient in low elo because you can just scale super hard with that item because you can stack it infinitely, and if you're able to farm a lot of the enemies in the lower elos, you'll get so many stacks. Like, I think I've gotten like 90 or 100 before, and it's actually insane. But yeah, that pretty much does it for the build for Blue Kayn. Now I want to go over the playstyle. The playstyle is very different than the Red Kayn playstyle. With Blue, you kind of want to cheese more in the early game. So like those 3 camp ganks are more common for Blue Kayn players. You can still full clear, obviously. Full clearing will always be the most efficient for both forms in terms of being the most consistent. But with Blue Kayn, cheesing is more like, it's more common because you need to get that form fast so you can snowball the game a lot faster, and then you can close the game out. With Blue Kayn, you're not really like a team fighting champ, you're more of a side lane champ. Kind of hover your side laners and then you just look for picks. You're pretty much a flanker. You look for flanks and then picks, similar to like Red Assassin, but it's more important on Blue because you don't have that knockup and that sustain in fights. So yeah, this pretty much covers the Blue Kayn playstyle. I'm gonna be showcasing some of the gameplay here for both forms, but yeah, if you guys like the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I kind of just wanted to go over just the builds and the runes and the playstyles, but if you guys want to see a more in-depth guide on each separate form, on just like more gameplay guide, let me know down in the comments below. Also, I recently partnered with Coachify, a coaching website. I'm a challenger coach with 700 plus students coached and 1,000 plus 5-star reviews. I offer some great rates. If you guys need any coaching, I coach all 5 roles, and I'll be leaving my links down below. If you guys hit me up and DM me with code OUTLAW, I'll be giving you guys a 15% discount just for my viewers. Yeah, if you guys like the video, like I said, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.